The desperate call. The grand chamber of the Galactic Concordat had never been so silent. Thousands of delegates representing hundreds of species sat frozen in their gravity-adjusted seats, watching the holographic display with mounting horror. The crystalline vessels moved like a swarm of razor-sharp fractals, tearing through another refugee convoy. No survivors. Again. Ambassador Zerevel of the Centaurian Collective felt her secondary heart stop as she watched the massacre. Her iridescent scales dulled with distress, an involuntary response her species had evolved over millions of years of peaceful development. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed quietly, cycling through different gas mixtures to accommodate the diverse breathing needs of its occupants. But today, no mixture could ease the suffocating weight of desperation. The crystalline dominion has rejected our seventh attempt at diplomatic contact, announced first speaker Tolran, his gelatinous form rippling with patterns that conveyed deep concern to those who could read them. They continue their advance through the Orion Spur. 42 colonies lost. 17 species now classified as critically endangered. A chorus of neural signatures pulsed from the hive mind representatives, translating roughly to, "Our computational models predict total conquest of known space within 6 standard cycles if their expansion continues unchecked." Zerevel rose from her seat, her voice carrying the musical undertones of her species. "Honored members of the Concordat, we have exhausted our conventional options. Our peacekeeping forces are designed for maintaining order among civilized species, not—" She gestured at the ongoing holocaust. "This. What would you have us do?" demanded Representative Clorax of the Silicon Republics, their crystalline form deliberately different from the invaders. "Our most advanced ships are being torn apart like gossamer. Our weapons barely scratch their hulls. They've evolved in the heart of a neutron star cluster. Their very beings are forged in conditions we can barely comprehend." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, neural signatures, and electromagnetic pulses as dozens of species tried to speak at once. First speaker Tolran's surface rippled with calming patterns until order was restored. "There might be another option," Zerevel said quietly, though her words carried clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. "We've all dismissed them as primitive, crude, perhaps even dangerous. But they survive conditions that would kill most of us instantly." A heavy silence fell as understanding spread through the chamber. The Silicon representative's crystalline form vibrated in shock. "You cannot be serious. The humans, they're barely out of their gravity well. Their primary world is a death trap of crushing gravity, caustic oxygen atmospheres, and extreme temperature variations." "Exactly," Zerevel continued, her scales beginning to shimmer with renewed hope. "They call Earth a garden world. Their idea of pleasant conditions would be lethal to 90% of spacefaring species, and they've built their technology to match." The holocaust shifted to show human vessels, blocky, over-engineered things that offended the aesthetic sensibilities of most advanced races. But Zerevel had studied them extensively. What looked like primitive design to others, she recognized as brutal efficiency. Their ships weren't crude. They were survival machines built by a species that had evolved expecting everything to try to kill them. "I've analyzed their military history," she continued. "They don't just survive adversity. They thrive on it. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every challenge spurs innovation. They call it adaptation, and they do it faster than any species we've encountered." First speaker Tolran's surface displayed patterns of deep contemplation. "They've been requesting membership in the Concordat for decades. We've always denied them, deemed them too aggressive, too unpredictable." "Perhaps," Zerevel said, her scales now glowing with conviction, "that's exactly what we need. The crystalline dominion evolved in extreme conditions, yes, but humans, they evolved on a world that taught them to expect the impossible, then overcome it anyway." The chamber buzzed with discussion. The hive mind representatives pulsed with rapid calculations, The Silicon Republic's representative vibrated in frequencies indicating deep anxiety. But as another refugee convoy's destruction played out on the Holocaust, the choice became clear. First speaker Tall Rand's surface rippled with the patterns of a formal declaration. By emergency protocol, I hereby propose we extend an immediate invitation to the Human Systems Alliance, with all rights and responsibilities thereof, conditional upon their assistance with the current crisis. All in favor. The vote wasn't even close. Hours later, a quantum transmission headed toward the Sol system. Humanity's first formal contact with the Galactic Concordat wasn't a celebration of achievement or a recognition of advancement. It was a desperate plea for help. In the observation lounge of Earth's orbital defense station, Admiral Sarah Chen read the message twice before allowing herself a small smile. 20 years of being dismissed as primitives, of having their requests for diplomatic contact politely deflected. And now this. Well, she said to her staff, it seems the galaxy has finally figured out that evolution on a death world doesn't produce victims. It produces survivors. She straightened her uniform. Signal all fleets. Operation TUNDRFORG is now active. Let's show them what primitive really means. Strength and design. The alien delegation aboard Earth's orbital command station couldn't hide their dismay at what they were seeing. Through the reinforced viewports of the observation deck, a fleet of human warships assembled in high orbit. To their eyes, the vessels looked like brutal, inelegant boxes of metal and composite materials, utterly lacking the crystalline grace or organic flow that marked civilized ship design. Admiral Chen noticed their reactions, but kept her expression neutral. She'd spent enough time studying xenopsychology to understand their perspective. To species that evolved in gentler environments, human engineering looked overwhelming, excessive, crude. They didn't understand that on Earth, redundancy meant survival. The Hyperion-class battlecruiser, she explained, indicating the largest vessel in the growing formation. Triple-layered hull with self-repairing nanomesh. Designed to withstand direct impact from objects moving at relativistic speeds, the outer layer can literally be stripped away, and the ship remains combat effective. Ambassador Zerival's scales shifted through patterns of disbelief. But the energy requirements must be astronomical. The material cost alone is justified by survival. Chen finished. We built these ships assuming we'd face threats we couldn't imagine. When your homeworld regularly tries to kill you with earthquakes, hurricanes, and volcanic eruptions, you learn to over-engineer everything. The delegation moved through the station's corridors, passing streams of human personnel rushing to their assignments. The aliens noticed how quickly and efficiently the humans moved in the station's full Earth gravity, while they themselves required localized gravity adjustment fields just to function. In the main tactical center, holographic displays showed the full scope of Operation TUNDRFORG. Over 100 human vessels were being mobilized across the solar system. Each ship's crew had trained in conditions that would kill most sentient species instantly. They practiced repairs in hard vacuum, conducted combat drills in crushing pressures, and ran simulations of every imaginable disaster, and quite a few unimaginable ones. Your ships, observed a Silicon Republic analyst, their crystalline form vibrating with confusion. They carry projectile weapons. In an age of energy beams and plasma lances. Lieutenant Commander Patel, the station's weapons officer, grinned. Railguns firing depleted uranium shells at 30% light speed. No energy shields in known space can maintain coherence against that kind of kinetic impact. We learned early that sometimes the oldest solutions are still the best ones. But the recoil forces are exactly why our ships look the way they do, Chen interrupted. Every human vessel is built around its main gun, like ancient seafaring vessels. We design for the worst-case scenario, then add redundancies for when something even worse happens. The tactical displays updated, showing the crystalline Dominions advance. Their ships were beautiful, geometric nightmares of impossible angles and fractal patterns. They had evolved in the heart of a neutron star cluster where the very forces of physics behaved differently. No conventional weapon had proved effective against them. "That's why you contacted us, isn't it?" Chen asked quietly. "Your weapons aren't working because you designed them to be elegant and efficient. You've never considered building something that seems absurdly overpowered because you never had to." Zereval's scales rippled with embarrassment. "We thought we were so advanced. Our technology is built on principles of harmony and efficiency. The crystalline dominion. They're like a force of nature." "How do you fight a force of nature?" Every human in the room smiled at that, an expression that made several alien delegates take an instinctive step back. Admiral Chen's voice carried the weight of humanity's entire evolutionary history as she answered. "You fight nature by surviving it, by adapting, by building things stronger than they need to be because nature always finds a way to test those limits. Every human ship carries enough backup systems to operate at 300% rated capacity because we learned those lessons the hard way. When your world tries to kill you every day, you don't build things to minimum specifications. You build them to survive the impossible." The main display showed the first wave of human ships entering FTL, their drives pushing the boundaries of physics in ways that made the alien observers deeply uncomfortable. The vessel's blocky shapes blurred and vanished, carrying humanity's response to the crystalline dominion's aggression. A junior alien delegate, watching the ships disappear, asked the question that had been bothering them all. "But how can you be so confident? The Dominion evolved in conditions that would destroy your vessels instantly." Admiral Chen's smile widened slightly. "Did you know that Earth has places where water becomes hot enough to melt lead, where pressures can crush titanium like paper, where temperatures swing from burning to freezing in minutes? We call those places tourist attractions. Your invaders evolved in extreme conditions, yes, but we evolved to adapt to alien-like conditions, and we built our ships to do the same." As if to emphasize her point, another wave of human vessels vanished into FTL. Their destination was the heart of crystalline dominion territory, where the laws of physics were stretched to their limits. But humans had been stretching the limits of survival since they first crawled out of Earth's oceans, and they had no intention of stopping now. The alien delegation watched in stunned silence as humanity's primitive fleet departed to challenge an enemy that had evolved in the crucible of a neutron star. They were beginning to understand that they had drastically misinterpreted what primitive meant when it came to a species that called a Deathworld home. The first strike. Captain Maya Rodriguez of the HSS Hyperion watched the tactical display with the calm focus of someone who had trained for impossible scenarios her entire career. The crystalline ships ahead of her fleet resembled abstract art more than vessels, all sharp angles and impossible geometries that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt the human eye to observe. "Multiple hostile contacts," reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. "Their hull compositions are, sir, these readings can't be right. The material density would collapse into a singularity." "Oh, they're right," Rodriguez said, allowing herself a small smile. "They evolved in a neutron star cluster. Their entire civilization exists in a state that physics says should be impossible." She straightened in her command chair. "Fortunately, humanity has a lot of experience dealing with impossible situations." Battle stations. The Hyperion's massive hull thrummed as weapon systems powered up. Throughout the ship, crews moved with practiced efficiency, each member knowing their role in humanity's first major interstellar engagement. They had trained for this moment in conditions that would kill most species instantly: hard vacuum, crushing pressures, extreme radiation. Earth's hostility had prepared them well. "Enemy fleet is moving to engage," Tactical reported. "Their formation. It's like nothing in our combat databases. The geometric patterns they're forming seem to be amplifying some kind of energy field." Rodriguez nodded. The crystalline Dominion ships were arranging themselves into a massive fractal pattern, each vessel becoming part of a larger geometric weapon. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. and completely unlike anything humanity had ever faced. "Time to show them why we build our ships the way we do," she said. "Execute Battle Plan 4. The human fleet's formation shifted. Where the alien vessels moved with geometric precision, the human ships seemed to flow like water, adapting to the space around them. It was a pattern born from studying Earth's predators. The way wolf packs hunted, how schools of fish evaded sharks, how swarms of birds confused larger predators. The crystalline ships struck first. Beams of coherent energy, twisted into impossible shapes by their fractal formation, lanced out at the human fleet. They were weapons that had torn through the most advanced shields of the Galactic Concordat like they weren't there. They met the outer hull of the Hyperion and her sister ships with a flash of dissipating energy. "Damage report," Rodriguez called out, though she already knew the answer. "Outer hull ablative layer performing as designed, Captain. Energy dispersion systems operating at 40% capacity. We can take hits like that all day." In the tactical center of the crystalline flagship, the enemy commander's crystalline consciousness vibrated with confusion. Their weapons, capable of cutting through normal matter like it wasn't there, had barely scratched these crude vessels. The humans had somehow designed their ship's outer layers to disperse energy along paths that shouldn't have been possible in normal space. "Launch primary strike package," Rodriguez ordered. "Let's show them why sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." The human fleet's railguns spoke as one. Depleted uranium shells, accelerated to appreciable fractions of light speed, crossed the space between the fleets in seconds. The crystalline ship's geometric formation shifted, creating defense patterns that had stopped every weapon the Galactic Concordat had ever deployed against them. The shells passed through their defenses like they weren't there. Physics, it turned out, didn't care about elegant solutions when confronted with that much kinetic energy. 3 crystalline vessels shattered, their impossible geometries breaking apart into clouds of glittering shards. The rest of their fleet reacted with visible shock, their formations wavering as they processed this unprecedented development. "They're regrouping," Tactical reported. "New formation emerging. Energy readings are off the scale." The remaining crystalline ships arranged themselves into a new pattern, one that seemed to bend space itself around them. Light twisted and distorted as they prepared to unleash their full power against these unexpectedly dangerous primitives. Rodriguez watched the display with interest. "You know what the difference is between us?" she asked her bridge crew rhetorically. "They evolved in extreme conditions, yes, but they evolved to exist in one specific type of extreme condition. We evolved to adapt to any condition." She keyed the fleet-wide comm. "All ships, execute diversity protocols. Show them why humanity never relies on just one approach." The human fleet split apart, each ship activating different weapon systems. Some fired more railgun shells, others launched swarms of autonomous drones, plasma projectors, gravity manipulators, and exotic particle beams all activated at once. It was messy, inelegant, and completely unpredictable. Everything that the geometrically perfect crystalline ships were not. The space between the fleets became a chaos of conflicting energies and technologies. The crystalline ships' perfect formations began to break apart as they tried to counter too many different types of attacks simultaneously. Their entire combat doctrine was based on geometric harmony and perfect coordination. They had no defense against calculated chaos. "They're retreating," Tactical announced with barely contained excitement. Multiple ships showing signs of severe structural damage. "Their formation is completely broken." Rodriguez nodded, watching the enemy fleet flee into FTL. "Send word to Admiral Chen. Phase 1 of Operation HFY is complete. The Crystalline Dominion just learned that underestimating primitive humans was a serious mistake." As damage control teams began assessing the minimal damage to the human fleet, Rodriguez allowed herself a moment of reflection. The galaxy was about to learn why evolution on a Deathworld produced not just survivors, but warriors who could adapt to any challenge. The crystalline dominion might have mastered the extreme conditions of their home, but humanity had mastered the art of mastering any condition. The first battle was over. The real war was just beginning. Adaptation and innovation. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in Earth's orbital command center, studying the holographic display with growing concern. The latest intelligence from the front showed the crystalline dominion had adapted to humanity's initial tactics far faster than expected. Their ships now incorporated new geometric patterns that could deflect kinetic weapons, turning humanity's railguns from decisive weapons into mere annoyances. "They're learning," she said to the assembled command staff. "Just like we do. We shouldn't be surprised. Any species that can evolve in a neutron star cluster has to be adaptable." The display showed footage from the latest engagement. A human fleet's carefully coordinated attack shattered against the Dominion's new defensive formations. The crystalline ships had arranged themselves into complex three-dimensional fractals that somehow redirected kinetic energy back at their attackers. "6 ships lost," reported Colonel Winters, his voice tight with controlled anger. "The Dominion's counterattack pushed our forces back across 3 sectors. They've developed some kind of resonance weapon that exploits our ship's structural integrity fields." "Well," Chen said with a grim smile, "they wanted to see humanity's real strength. Time to show them why we're the galaxy's greatest survivors." She turned to her staff. "Get me Captain Rodriguez and the Advanced Warfare Division. We're going to give them a lesson in human adaptation." 12 hours later, the HSS Hyperion hung in high orbit around Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon. Captain Rodriguez watched through reinforced viewports as engineering teams swarmed over her ship's hull, implementing modifications that would have seemed insane just days ago. "The interface is stable," reported Dr. Sarah Wong, head of Project HFY Galaxy. "We've successfully integrated the crystalline matrix into the ship's outer hull. The geometric resonance patterns are holding." Rodriguez nodded, studying the strange patterns now etched into her ship's armor. They had captured intact fragments of crystalline Dominion vessels during the previous battles. Instead of just analyzing them, humanity had done what it did best: adapted and improvised. "To fight crystalline geometry, we become crystalline geometry," she mused, "but with a human twist." "Status of the phase resonators: online and synchronized," Wong answered. "The crystalline lattice amplifies our structural integrity field instead of fighting it. We're not just copying their technology, we're improving it." The modifications looked bizarre: geometric patterns that seemed to fold through impossible dimensions, integrated into the Hyperion's already imposing hull. It was a hybrid of human engineering and crystalline physics that shouldn't have been possible, but humanity had long experience with doing the impossible. "Fleet reports all modifications complete," Tactical announced. "Task Force HFY Galaxy is ready for deployment." The upgraded human fleet moved out from Europa's shadow, their hybrid hulls catching Jupiter's light in ways that made them look almost alive. They had taken the enemy's greatest strength and incorporated it into their own designs, but with characteristically human improvements. The crystalline Dominion fleet waited at the edge of the Ta-CD system, their ships arranged in perfect geometric formations that could shatter conventional vessels with harmonic resonance. They detected the approaching human fleet and prepared their devastating resonance weapons. The weapons fired. Reality twisted as geometric patterns designed to tear ships apart lashed out at the human vessels, and did absolutely nothing. As expected, Rodriguez reported to Admiral Chen, "Their resonance weapons are trying to exploit structural weaknesses that no longer exist. Our hybrid hull geometry doesn't just resist their attacks, it absorbs and redirects the energy." She allowed herself a fierce grin. "Now it's our turn. All ships, execute Operation Fractal Storm." The human fleet's formation shifted, their crystalline enhanced hulls beginning to glow with accumulated energy. The geometric patterns they now carried weren't just defensive. They were weapons in their own right, improved by human engineering and powered by reactors that could sustain a small sun. When they fired, they didn't just copy the Dominion's resonance weapons. They improved them, combining crystalline geometry with human engineering principles in ways the original developers had never imagined. The hybrid weapons didn't try to find structural weaknesses. They created them, forcing the enemy ship's perfect geometries to collapse in on themselves. The crystalline Dominion fleet, faced with weapons that turned their own physics against them, broke formation for the first time in the war. Their retreat wasn't just tactical. It was panicked, their perfect coordination shattering in the face of humanity's adaptive response. "Send word to Earth," Rodriguez ordered as she watched the enemy flee. "Project Avalanche is a success. We've proved we can not only understand their technology but improve it. The galaxy is about to learn why challenging humanity's ability to adapt was their biggest mistake." In the orbital command center, Admiral Chen received the report with satisfaction. The crystalline Dominion had thought their technology was beyond human comprehension, their physics too advanced for primitives to grasp. They were learning what Earth had taught humanity eons ago. True advancement wasn't about achieving perfection in one area, but about being able to adapt to and improve upon anything. The war was entering a new phase, and humanity was just getting started. A new understanding. The grand chamber of the Galactic Concordat was silent once again, but this time the silence held awe rather than fear. The holographic display showed the impossible. Crystalline Dominion ships, their perfect geometric forms now scared and broken, retreating from human space in disarray. Behind them, the hybrid vessels of humanity's fleet hung in the void like ancient guardians, their crystalline enhanced hulls pulsing with captured energy. Ambassador Zerival's scales rippled with colors that had no translation in human language, a complex mixture of relief, amazement, and something close to reverence. In less than 3 standard months, she addressed the chamber. They didn't just stop the unstoppable. They adapted, innovated, and turned the enemy's greatest strength into a weapon against them. The Silicon Republic's representative vibrated in frequencies indicating deep thought. "They took our most advanced understanding of crystalline physics and improved it. Their primitive engineering actually enhanced the geometric resonance patterns in ways we never considered possible." Admiral Chen stood at the chamber's central podium, her dress uniform carrying both Earth Force insignia and the newly created symbols of the combined defense fleet. The last 3 months had aged her, but her eyes held the steady confidence of someone who had faced the impossible and won. "The crystalline Dominion made the same mistake that many others have made," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic enhancement field. "They assumed that because we evolved on what you call a death world, because our technology looks overwhelming and crude to your eyes, that we were somehow less advanced." She gestured to the display, which shifted to show the hybrid human vessels in detail. Their hulls now incorporated impossible geometric patterns that somehow made their already formidable engineering even stronger. It was a perfect fusion of human practical design and the advanced physics of their former enemies. "But humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to survive harsh conditions," Chen continued. "It's our ability to learn, to adapt, to take new ideas, and make them our own. We don't just copy. We improve. We innovate. Every challenge makes us stronger. Every setback teaches us something new." The display shifted again, showing the formal surrender of the crystalline Dominion. Their remaining ships, once perfect geometric forms of impossible beauty, now arranged themselves in a pattern that acknowledged defeat. But it wasn't just surrender, it was recognition. They had finally understood what they were facing. The Dominion evolved in extreme conditions, yes, Chen explained, but they evolved to master one specific type of extreme environment. Humanity, we evolved to master the art of mastering any environment. Earth threw everything it could at us, crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, natural disasters, countless predators, and each challenge taught us something new. First speaker Tolran's surface rippled with formal patterns. "The Galactic Concordat acknowledges humanity's contribution to our collective survival. But more than that, we acknowledge our error in judgment. We saw your engineering as crude because it was overbuilt, your ships as primitive because they prioritized survival over elegance. We fail to understand that true advancement isn't about achieving perfection in one area. It's about having the flexibility to adapt to any challenge. The chamber erupted in a chorus of agreement expressed in dozens of different ways. Neural signatures pulsing, crystalline forms vibrating, scales shifting through colors of accord. The display showed human ships now patrolling previously contested sectors, their hybrid technology standing ready to defend against any threat. The Crystalline Dominion has agreed to share their physics knowledge with the Concordat, Chen announced. In return, we'll teach them something about human engineering principles. Together, we'll create defenses that combine the best of both approaches. She smiled slightly. They're quick learners, once they got past their assumptions about primitive species. Ambassador Ziraval rose, her scales now glowing with formal ceremonial patterns. Let this mark not just the end of a conflict, but the beginning of a new understanding. We invited humanity to join the Galactic Concordat out of desperate need. They proved themselves not just capable allies in war, but teachers in peace. Their perspective, shaped by evolution on a world we considered too harsh for intelligence to develop, brings new insights to our collective knowledge. The Chamber's vote to grant humanity full membership in the Concordat was unanimous. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Chen looked out at the assembled representatives of hundreds of species. Each had evolved in different conditions, developed different approaches to technology and survival. But they all shared one thing: a new appreciation for the species that called a Deathworld home. "We have a saying on Earth," she told them. "Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it." The Crystalline Dominion's attack revealed something important about humanity to the galaxy. But more importantly, it revealed something about advancement itself. True civilization isn't about achieving perfection. It's about never stopping in the quest to improve, adapt, and overcome. The display showed Earth rotating slowly, its blue-white surface deceptively peaceful from orbit. To most species in the chamber, it was still a death world of crushing gravity and corrosive oxygen. But they now understood that this harsh crucible had forged something remarkable. A species that didn't just survive adversity, but thrived on it. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how humanity liked it.